Welcome back to the YouTube channel COINSX History US, the home of hidden treasures, rare coins, and unbelievable history. Stop scrolling right now because what you're about to see could change the way you look at the coins in your pocket forever. Most people think a Washington quarter is worth just 25 cents, but what if I told you so? Washington quarters are worth thousands, even tens of thousands of dollars. In today's video, we're revealing the top 5 ultra super rare Washington quarter dollar coins that collectors are desperately searching for right now. These aren't ordinary coins. We're talking about mint errors, low mintage years, silver rarities, and legendary quarters that slipped into circulation unnoticed.
Imagine holding a small silver-colored coin in your hand. A coin that has traveled through decades of American history, survived the end of the silver era, stood firm in the time of inflation, energy crises, and political change. This is not just a piece of metal. This is the 1978 Washington quarter, a coin that tells the story of American resilience, design, tradition, and economic transformation. Today, we dive deep into the untold story of the Washington quarter from the year 1978, the year that quietly marked the end of an era before the great redesigns and before the state quarters revolution. This is the story of one coin that represents the calm before the storm in American numismatics. To understand the 1978 Washington quarter, we must travel back to the origins of the design itself. The Washington quarter was first introduced in 1932 as a one-year commemorative coin to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The public loved it so much that it became the permanent design, replacing the standing Liberty quarter designed by Herman McNeil. The Washington quarter was created by sculptor John Flanagan. His portrait of Washington was chosen for its dignity, simplicity, and strength, and for more than 4 decades it became an icon of American coinage by 1978. The design had already been in circulation for 46 years, yet the coin remained a powerful symbol of American identity even as the nation itself was changing. By the late 1970s, America was recovering from a turbulent decade. The Vietnam War had ended, the Watergate scandal had shaken public trust, and the economy faced serious challenges. Inflation was high, unemployment was growing, and the value of the dollar was weakening. Precious metal prices had surged in the early part of the decade, leading to a dramatic change in America's coinage composition. In 1965, silver was officially removed from quarters, ending a centuries-old tradition of silver coinage. By 1978, the Washington quarter was made entirely of copper and nickel, layered in a clad structure, a pure copper core, sandwiched between 2 outer layers of copper-nickel. The total composition was 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its distinct silvery color and durability. The coin measured 24.3 millimeters in diameter and weighed 5.67 grams. This modernized version was more resistant to wear and far cheaper to produce in large quantities. During 1978, 3 mints produced Washington quarters: the Philadelphia Mint without a mint mark, the Denver Mint bearing the small letter D, and the San Francisco Mint producing proof coins marked with an S. The Philadelphia and Denver Mints produced circulation strikes, while the San Francisco Mint's coins were made for collectors with mirror-like surfaces and frosted details designed to highlight the artistry of Flanagan's portrait. In 1978, more than 1.5 billion Washington quarters were struck combined between Philadelphia and Denver. The Philadelphia Mint produced around 521 million, while the Denver Mint struck over 367 million coins. These were immense numbers reflecting the economic activity of the time, yet even in such large quantities, not every quarter was perfect. Variations in die wear, striking pressure, and planche quality led to subtle differences that today make certain coins far more desirable to collectors. Among these varieties, the full strike examples with sharp hair details on Washington's portrait and crisp eagle feathers on the reverse are particularly prized by grading services and serious numismatists. Speaking of the reverse, the design carried the majestic bald eagle with its wings spread, clutching a bundle of arrows with 2 olive branches below, symbolizing both strength and peace above the eagle. The word United States of America arched proudly across the rim, while the denomination quarter dollar anchored the bottom. This design remained untouched until 1999, when the state quarters program would begin a new chapter in American numismatic history, but in 1978, that classic eagle reverse represented stability and tradition, something the American people deeply valued during times of change. The year 1978 was significant in more ways than one for the mint. It was a period of technological advancement and refinement. The U.S. Mint was improving die-making techniques using better quality hubs and more precise engraving equipment. Though these improvements were not yet digital, they laid the groundwork for the modernization that would come in the 1980s. Numismatically, the late 70s were also a time of growing collector interest. Many Americans had started saving coins since the great coin shortage of the mid-1960s, and by the 70s, collecting had become one of the most popular hobbies in the United States. Coin shows, coin clubs, and price guides were booming. The 1978 quarter circulated in millions of hands. But among collectors, it began to represent the last breath of a pre-computer age, of minting, a time when dies were still manually polished and minor differences gave each year its own character. Let's talk about value. While most 1978 quarters are worth only their face value, in circulated condition, pristine examples can be worth significantly more. In the collector market, a 1978 quarter graded MS-67 or higher by professional grading services such as PCGs or NGC can command premium prices, sometimes reaching hundreds of dollars, depending on luster strike and overall eye appeal-proof examples. From San Francisco with deep cameo contrast are also desirable, particularly those free of spots and haze. These proofs showcase the artistry of Flanagan's design. In its most perfect form, the reflective fields and frosted portrait create a timeless image of George Washington that continues to capture the attention of collectors, for collectors searching for hidden gems. There are a few known varieties to look for. One is the weak strike quarter, often from worn dies. Another is the misaligned die strike, which can cause off-center designs and give the coin a unique appearance, though rare major errors such as double strikes or clipped planchets have been documented, and these can be extremely valuable. The beauty of the 1978 quarter lies not just in its design, but in its representation of the minting challenges and artistic craftsmanship of its time. As the 1970s came to a close, America stood on the edge of a new economic decade, one that would bring new leadership, new technologies, and eventually new coin designs. But before all that, the 1978 Washington quarter stood as a symbol of endurance, a bridge between the traditional artistry of early 20th century coinage and the modern efficiency of late-century minting. It carried the face of George Washington as it had since 1932, but it also carried the weight of decades of history. Every scratch, every nick, and every shine told a story of daily American life, of hands that used it to buy coffee, newspapers, and gasoline, of pockets that carried it through recessions and recoveries, of children who dropped it into arcade machines and vending slots, and of collectors who recognized that even in common coins, there lies a piece of national identity. Imagine holding a small piece of American history right in your hand, a simple quarter dated 1973, but beneath that shiny surface lies a story that stretches across politics, economics, art, and legacy, a story that tells how the United States Mint carried the symbol of George Washington through one of the most significant decades in American coinage history. The 1973 Washington quarter is not just another piece of change, it's a metallic time capsule, a bridge between the silver past and the clad future. It witnessed inflation, energy crises, changes in minting technology, and a growing coin collecting movement that changed the way Americans looked at their pocket change today. We are diving deep into the journey of the 1973 Washington quarter, a coin that many spend without a thought but few truly understand, from its historical roots to its striking design, from its minting variations to the hidden errors worth hundreds and even thousands of dollars. By the end of this video, you will see why the 1973 Washington quarter is a silent icon of the American minting legacy. Our story begins in the early 1930s, when the United States was emerging from the Great Depression. The nation wanted to honor its first president, George Washington, and the bicentennial of his birth in 1932. The Treasury Department and the Commission of Fine Arts approved a design competition, and it was sculptor John Flanagan whose portrait of Washington became the enduring image that would later appear on the 1973 quarter. For decades, that portrait remained largely unchanged, symbolizing not just a founding father, but the permanence and endurance of the nation itself. Fast forward to 1973. America was in a different era. The country was dealing with economic challenges after the collapse of the Bretton Woods system. Inflation was rising, and silver had long been removed from circulating coinage. The mint had fully transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition, which began in 1965, replacing the beloved 90% silver quarters. The 1973 Washington quarter thus stood as a representation of modern America, a coin for an age of transition, made not from silver, but from layered copper and nickel, designed to last longer and cost less to produce. The United States Mint produced the 1973 quarter at three main facilities: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia mint coins bore no mint mark, while Denver quarters carried the familiar D mint mark and San Francisco struck proofs with the S mint mark for collectors. Each mint had its own significance in that year. The Philadelphia Mint focused heavily on circulation needs, producing millions of quarters for everyday use, while Denver's output met the needs of the rapidly growing Western and Midwestern economies. At the San Francisco Mint, the story takes a more artistic turn. Proof sets from 1973 became prized collector items. Each proof quarter was struck multiple times, using polished dies and specially prepared planchets. The result was a mirror-like finish, and exceptional detail. Proof sets were not meant for circulation, but rather for collectors who appreciated the craftsmanship and the gleaming perfection that only the San Francisco Mint could deliver. At the time, the 1973 Washington quarters composition remained standard for its era, an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a core of pure copper. The total weight was 5.67 grams and the diameter 24.3 millimeters. The reeded edge carried 119 reeds, a feature that not only prevented counterfeiting, but also linked the design to its silver predecessors, even though the metal had changed. The craftsmanship and attention to detail remained deeply rooted in the traditions of the mint one. Of the fascinating aspects of the 1973 quarter is the subtle evolution of the dies used that year, small differences in strike strength and the definition of hair details, and in the lettering thickness make each mint's version slightly distinct. Numismatists have spent decades cataloging these subtle varieties and errors, such as double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, and planchet flaws. Some of these errors can make an ordinary-looking coin worth a small fortune in the collector's market. A double die obverse where the word Liberty or the date shows clear doubling can reach values in the hundreds of dollars, and if found in proof condition or with exceptional toning, it can soar even higher. Now let's step into the broader historical context of the early 1970s. The United States Mint was adapting to new demands. The Coinage Act of 1965 had forever altered coin production by removing silver, and by 1973, the Mint had mastered the art of producing billions of durable clad coins efficiently. The Washington quarter stood as the backbone of everyday transactions. Vending machines, parking meters, toll booths, and payphones all operated around it. The durability of the copper-nickel-clad composition made it ideal for heavy use in a rapidly mechanizing society. During this era, coin collecting reached a new level of popularity. The baby boomer generation, now adults, remembered collecting coins as children in the 1950s and 1960s and continued the hobby with renewed enthusiasm. The 1973 proof sets and uncirculated mint sets became must-haves for enthusiasts who were building complete collections by date and mint mark. This surge of interest also meant that the Mint had to maintain high standards of consistency and quality control as collectors scrutinized every detail, from the sharpness of Washington's portrait to the clarity of the eagle's feathers on the reverse. Speaking of the reverse, the eagle design on the 1973 quarter is one of the most powerful and enduring symbols in American numismatics. John Flanagan's reverse design features a proud bald eagle perched upon a bundle of arrows with two olive branches below, symbolizing America's readiness to defend peace. The artistry of this design speaks of balance, strength, and national pride, a motif that resonated deeply during the politically charged and uncertain years of the 1970s when the nation was recovering from Vietnam and facing new global challenges. Another interesting part of the 1973 quarter story lies in the technological advancements of minting. During that time, coin presses had become faster, more precise, and automated, allowing for higher output, with fewer defects yet. Despite the improvements, errors still occurred, and those are the ones collectors chase today. A 1973 quarter, with a broad strike missing reading, or a misaligned die, can instantly transform from a simple coin into a numismatic treasure. Some examples have sold for over $1,000, especially those in mint state grades, certified by professional grading services such as PCGS or NGC. When we talk about value, we must also talk about condition. Coins are graded on a 70-point scale with mint state 60 to 70, reserved for uncirculated examples. A 1973 Washington quarter in mint state 65 or higher can fetch significant premiums depending on strike and eye appeal-proof versions. Graded PR69 or PR70 deep cameo are particularly sought after as they represent perfection in modern minting. In recent years, auction records show that certain pristine 1973S proof quarters have reached impressive figures, demonstrating how even modern-clad coins can achieve collectible status when preserved in perfect condition. Beyond the coin itself, the 1973 quarter serves as a mirror reflecting the American spirit of endurance, adaptation, and pride. It represents the continuation of a design that had already lasted over 4 decades and would continue for more than 20 years before being replaced by the 50-state quarters program in 1999. Its longevity is a testament to the success of its design and the power of Washington's image as a unifying national symbol. Even today, collectors and historians regard the 1973 quarter as a milestone coin. It bridges the gap between old Silver Age collectors and modern clad enthusiasts. It connects generations of Americans who use the same design for over half a century. Every small nick or scratch on a circulated 1973 quarter tells the story of its journey through countless hands, through markets, highways, cities, and pockets across the country. It has lived a life far beyond its 25-cent value. As we reach the later part of this story, think of how this coin survived a changing economy, a technological revolution, and the shift in American culture from the analog to the digital age, from jukeboxes and gas pumps to credit cards and smartphones. The Washington quarter remains as one of the few unchanged icons of American daily life, and now as collectors rediscover the beauty and depth of these older-clad coins, the 1973 Washington quarter stands ready to tell its story again from the engravers. Careful strokes to the clang of the mint press from the first strike in Philadelphia to the collector's album decades later. Its legacy endures, a shining reminder that even the smallest coins can carry the weight of history. Have you ever held a small piece of metal in your hand without realizing that it carries over 2 centuries of American pride, history, and hidden value? A coin that millions spent daily without knowing that some versions of it could make you thousands of dollars today? Well, get ready, because today we are diving deep into one of the most iconic coins in American history, the 1979 Washington quarter. A coin that may look ordinary to the untrained eye, but hides stories of artistry, minting, evolution, and the silent transformation of American coinage that few people truly understand. This is not just about a coin, it is about the legacy of a nation told through silver, copper, and craftsmanship. So sit back and get ready for a journey that connects George Washington, the U.S. Mint, the changing face of America, and the hidden treasures that may still be lying unnoticed in your pocket. Change. The year 1979 marked an important period in the timeline of United States coinage. It was an era of transition, innovation, and subtle transformation for the Washington Quarter series that had already been circulating since 1932, when the coin was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The design of the quarter, created by sculptor John Flanagan, had become one of the most recognizable faces of American currency, featuring a left-facing bust of the nation's first president on the obverse and a majestic heraldic eagle on the reverse by 1979. This design had already been circulating for nearly half a century, making it a familiar and trusted image in the daily lives of Americans. But what makes the 1979 Washington quarter stand out in coin history is the period it represents, a bridge between the silver coinage era that ended in the mid-1960s and the modern clad coinage that would dominate the later 20th century. The story of this coin begins with the United States Mint's decision in 1965 to end the use of 90% silver in circulating quarters due to the rising cost of silver and the increasing demand for coins. This change replaced silver with a copper-nickel-clad composition, consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This was the same metallic composition still used in the 1979 quarter. The 1979 Washington quarter was struck at 3 mints: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint, each carrying its own mint mark with the Philadelphia quarters traditionally carrying no mint mark, the Denver quarters showing a small D and the San Francisco Mint producing proof versions marked with an S. This distribution followed the same pattern that had been used since the early 20th century, and yet 1979 saw the continuation of something unique in proof coin production, as the San Francisco Mint was still in the early years of using highly polished dies and planchets to create proof coins that were mirror-like and deeply detailed. The obverse of the coin continued to feature the left-profile portrait of George Washington designed by John Flanagan. The detail in Washington's hair, the subtle curvature of his face, and the clear separation between design elements reflected decades of fine-tuning by mint engravers. The word Liberty arched above Washington's head while the motto, "In God We Trust," was positioned to the left, and the date 1979 appeared below the portrait. Though the basic design was unchanged, the sharpness of detail often varied depending on the minting quality and die condition. On the reverse, the classic heraldic eagle design, also by Flanagan, remained in full display, with the eagle perched on a bundle of arrows, symbolizing defense, while olive branches beneath represented peace. The inscriptions United States of America and E Pluribus Unum appeared above the eagle, and the denomination $quarter was placed below in bold letters. One of the most interesting aspects of the 1979 Washington quarter is its connection to the shift in minting technology and quality control. During the late 1970s, the mint was experimenting with improving die life and planche preparation, leading to slight variations in luster strike sharpness and rim quality across different mint facilities. Collectors today can identify subtle die varieties, such as weak strikes, broad strikes, and even minor doubled dies that occurred due to these production transitions. While 1979 may not have introduced a major design overhaul, it was a significant year for proof coin collectors. The San Francisco proof sets of that year became notable for the introduction of the so-called Type 1 and Type 2 mint mark varieties. The difference lay in the shape of the S mint mark on the proof. Coins the Type 1 featured a filled or blob-like S, while the Type 2 displayed a much clearer and more defined S with sharper serifs. The Type 2 variety became more desirable to collectors due to its refined appearance and smaller mintage. This small distinction added depth to the coin's collectability and became a point of fascination for numismatists. The circulation strike mintage numbers for the 1979 Washington quarter were high, with over 515 million struck in Philadelphia and nearly 490 million at Denver. The vast number of coins produced makes most of them common in circulated condition, but gem uncirculated examples with full detail and luster are much harder to find. Coins graded MS66 and above command higher premiums, especially those with strong strikes and minimal contact marks. Proof coins from San Francisco, particularly the deep cameo Type 2 examples, are especially sought after by collectors today. When you look at the broader history of the Washington quarter, the 1979 issue represents the last phase before the 1980s modernization of minting equipment and the eventual redesign that would replace the eagle reverse decades later with the 1999 state quarters program that forever changed the way Americans viewed their pocket change. Thus, the 1979 quarter sits at a crossroads between tradition and transformation. Its legacy lies not in rarity, but in representation. It is a symbol of the American mint's resilience during a time of inflation, economic challenge, and modernization. Beyond its production and physical details, the 1979 Washington quarter also holds cultural significance. This coin circulated during a period of intense change in the United States. The late 1970s was a time marked by shifting politics, energy crises, technological evolution, and the early waves of the digital revolution. The quarter remained a constant presence in the everyday lives of Americans, a tangible symbol of national identity as the country prepared to enter a new decade. Collectors today appreciate the 1979 Washington quarter, not just for its design and varieties, but for what it represents: the continuation of a design that had become deeply embedded in American life, and the craftsmanship that connected mid-century minting tradition with modern numismatic precision. Whether found in circulation-proof sets or high-grade slabs, these coins are artifacts of a time when the mint was balancing artistry, economy, and technological progress. Each 1979 quarter tells a silent story of the machines that struck it, the dies that wore down with every press, the hands that counted it, and the pockets it passed through before finding its way into the careful hands of collectors decades later. Imagine holding a small silver-colored coin that carries decades of American history, artistry, and evolution in your palm. The 1996 Washington quarter may look like an ordinary piece of change, but hidden beneath its surface lies a story of design, endurance, minting, precision collector, fascination, and national symbolism that has withstood the test of time. From the intricate sculpting of George Washington's proud profile to the industrial advances that shaped its production, this coin is more than just 25 cents. It is a mirror reflecting the American spirit, resilience, and progress. Today, we dive deep into the fascinating world of the 1996 Washington quarter, a coin that marks the last chapter of an era before one of the greatest transformations in U.S. coinage history. This is not just a coin. This is a time capsule of American craftsmanship, patriotism, and change. The 1996 Washington quarter represents the continuation of a legacy that began in 1932, when the United States Mint first introduced the Washington quarter to honor the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. Sculpted by John Flanagan, whose artistry captured Washington's distinguished yet approachable features, the design became one of the most enduring in American coinage history, and by 1996, it had already graced the nation's pockets for more than 6 decades. In the mid-1990s, the United States Mint was operating at full capacity to meet growing demand for circulating coinage. The economy was strong, technology was advancing, and the Washington quarter remained a cornerstone of everyday transactions. 1996 was a particularly interesting year because it stood on the edge of a monumental shift. The Mint was preparing for the launch of the 50-state quarters program that would debut in 1999 and completely transform how Americans viewed and collected quarters. Thus, the 1996 issue can be seen as one of the final pure representations of the classic Washington quarter. Before this great national initiative began, the obverse of the 1996 quarter retained Flanagan's original portrait of George Washington, though subtle modifications had been made over the years to sharpen the design and adapt it to new minting technology. Washington's face is turned left. His expression stoic and dignified, the word liberty stands boldly above his head, and the national motto, "In God We Trust," lies to his left. The date, 1996, rests neatly below his neckline. On the reverse, the majestic bald eagle stands centered with its wings spread wide, a bundle of arrows clutched firmly in its talons, symbolizing strength and readiness to defend the nation, while 2 olive branches represent the pursuit of peace. The inscriptions, United States of America and a pluribus unum, frame the eagle above, while the denomination quarter dollar anchors the design below. In 1996, quarters were struck at 3 main locations: the Philadelphia Mint, the Denver Mint, and the San Francisco Mint. Each bore its own unique mint mark. The Philadelphia issues carried the letter P, the Denver coins featured the D mint mark, and the San Francisco Mint struck proof coins for collectors identified by the letter S. The P and D coins were minted in massive quantities as part of everyday circulation, with the Philadelphia Mint producing hundreds of millions of pieces, while the Denver Mint's output was similarly high. These circulation strikes were composed of a copper-nickel-clad material, featuring an inner core of pure copper and an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving the coin its bright silvery appearance. Meanwhile, the San Francisco Mint produced the 1996 S-proof quarters, which were struck using specially polished dies and planchets to create mirror-like surfaces and sharp frosted details. Proof coins were not meant for everyday use, but for collectors who valued the artistry and perfection of the design. 1996 also marked one of the years where the Mint's quality control reached exceptional levels, producing some of the finest proofs of the modern era. Beyond regular strikes, the 1996 quarter holds significant value for collectors due to a few notable varieties and errors. Among these are off-center strikes, double die, obverses, and missing-clad layer errors, which add intrigue and rarity to what would otherwise be a common circulation coin. These minting anomalies have been sought after by numismatists who appreciate the unpredictability of mechanical production during the era, before full digital precision took over. The year 1996 also marked the 65th anniversary of the Washington Quarter's design, making it a symbolic milestone in its history. For over 6 decades, the same portrait of George Washington had graced America's coinage, surviving multiple artistic trends and economic transformations. This consistency made the Washington Quarter a visual anchor in a rapidly changing financial landscape. At a time when the U.S. Mint was experimenting with new alloys and automated technology, the 1996 quarter served as a bridge between tradition and innovation. The Mint itself had undergone tremendous modernization by the mid-1990s computer-assisted design laser engraving, and new die-making techniques were beginning to redefine how coins were produced. Even though the overall appearance of the quarter remained the same, the tools used to craft it were far more advanced than those used in 1932. This transition marked the beginning of the digital era in minting technology, making the 1996 quarter one of the last coins to fully represent the analog craftsmanship of the 20th century. Collectors today value the 1996 Washington quarter not for its intrinsic rarity, but for its historical placement in the timeline of U.S. coinage. A pristine example in mint state condition can fetch premiums, particularly if graded MS-67 or higher by professional services such as PCGS or NGC. The 1996 S Silver Proof version, which was part of the Silver Proof set struck in 90% silver and 10% copper, is highly sought after for its luster and purity. These coins stand as modern reminders of a time when the Mint continued to honor the traditional standards of American coin design before the arrival of the state quarter program in 1999. Culturally, the Washington quarter has always carried weight beyond its face value. It is a symbol of national identity and continuity. Through wars, economic recessions, and social transformations, the quarter remained a stable part of everyday life. The 1996 edition continued that tradition, embodying both the familiar and the transitional as America moved toward the millennium. The Washington quarter's enduring appeal also lies in its accessibility. Unlike rare gold coins or commemoratives, the quarter is something that every American has handled at some point in life. It tells stories of the people who spent it, the industries that minted it, and the nation that trusted it. The 1996 quarter might have bought a cup of coffee or a newspaper back then, but today it buys nostalgia, a connection to the American story that resonates with both seasoned collectors and new enthusiasts. As we reflect on the 1996 Washington quarter, it becomes clear that it was more than a mere piece of metal. It was the culmination of over half a century of artistry, technology, and national pride. It was the last calm before the storm of creativity that the state quarters program would unleash. Just 3 years later, the 1996 coin carried with it the legacy of John Flanagan's design and the Mint's meticulous craftsmanship, while standing as a silent witness to the close of an era, from its gleaming surfaces to its symbolic imagery, from its copper core to its silver proofs. The 1996 Washington quarter remains an essential chapter in the American numismatic story. Every mark, every detail, and every reflection on its surface speaks of a nation constantly evolving yet deeply rooted in its past.